It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand my ups and downs.
Welcome once again to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. Hi, everyone. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett. How are you today, Gene?
I'm great.
Good.
How about you?
I'm doing fine. Busy. Spring is always a busy season for us in property management.
Yes, it is. Now, I want to ask you, I don't mean to give you a hard time. Now, you did turn off your cell phone, didn't you? Before you?
I did. I remembered. I embarrassed myself. I embarrassed myself last week, and I'm going to try not to let that happen again.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Tony, will you turn off your cell phone, please?
You know, now it's like ringing in my head. I'm not sure I can turn that off. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Just a little reminder here. Hey, folks, we're glad you're with us here this wonderful Sunday morning. We've got a lot to cover on today's show. We've got a message from Tom Skiba, who is the president and CEO of Community Associations Institute, who is weighing in on Neighborhood Watch programs. We'll talk about that in just a moment. A little bit later on in the show, we've got a story about a board member who was ousted. He sued the board, and he got reinstated as a board member. We're going to talk about that case. And good news for homeowner associations. You remember we've talked about this topic, FHA transfer fee restrictions, where they didn't want homeowner associations to be able to charge a fee for new owners coming in. Good news, it looks like they'll be able to do that. There are some guidelines. We're going to go through that and so much more. But it is time right now for Property Management in the News. Property Management in the News is brought to you by Pest Control Services. When you need to get rid of unwanted pests in your home or rental property, call someone who's responsive, professional, and a proud member of Angie List. Give owner Greg Keener a call at 952-894-9748, Pest Control Services. Well, our first story is a short message from Tom Skiba, who some of you may know is the CEO and president of Community Associations Institute, the national organization. And I don't think as a country we've stopped talking about Trayvon Martin and that case.
That horrible tragedy. And that's what this article is about.
Yes.
Or that's what prompted the article.
And, of course, he begins by saying, of course, the death of Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old high school student, he said, is a vivid reminder that Neighborhood Watch programs, even with the best intentions, can trigger tragic results for families, residents, and entire communities. And I think the gist here that I get from what he is saying, Tony, is that more important, he's saying, let's put aside what is going on, because the court's going to decide all of that. I think he's saying, you know, we don't know, we can't pass judgment because we don't know what's going on. We'll let the courts do that. But he said, let's take this moment to remind associations that there is a responsibility that you have anytime you have someone who is representing the association in any capacity.
Yeah, that's true. And he has really good suggestions for homeowners associations that might be considering instituting a Neighborhood Watch program, or if they already have one in place. And it's his number one recommendation is make sure you're working with the local police department, and if there's a formal Neighborhood Watch program in your community, work with them to get training and materials. I think that's his number one recommendation.
Yeah, and that really stands to reason. You know, one of the things that becomes askew with homeowner associations is that even though the board gets used to governing this group, this community, this HOA, they need to remember that even though they have some authority, it's a limited authority.
Yeah.
It's a limited power.
Yeah, another of his check on his checklist is make sure the association understands the limits of their authority and their responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially when it comes to, any kind of legal matter. When it comes to, we've talked about it, disturbing the peace, other common issues.
Yeah.
I guess
parking on the street, parking in the private parking lots. Yeah,
animals that are not under control, right? Pets, those kinds of things. And unfortunately, a lot of people living in a homeowner association, I think. They get this this mindset that says, "Well, the board should take care of it,
take care of everything." Yeah,
yeah, and they really can, and so the things that really belong to the police or the city, allow them to take care of it because they're going to be able to handle it so much more effectively than we can, and so I that's I think a very good reminder. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I think it's something that we've been saying the last couple weeks when we've talked about it, because someone else will chime in about Trayvon Martin and about how that affects homeowner associations. The thing that I have found the most uneasy about throughout this whole thing is I don't know what I would call it, the hypersensitivity that we've developed as a nation or a society, where we are quick to jump in and very quick to point fingers
and assume the worst.
Exactly. Doesn't that seem to be the way it goes?
Yeah, and kind of public opinion and the way it's been this story has been painted in the press is that there was something malicious about the way. And what was the neighborhood watch person's name? Was it George
Zimmerman?
Zimmerman.
Yes.
He's really been painted as being malicious and having evil intent in this situation.
Mm-hmm. And there are some people that are using this as a way of, I think, causing what I would call maybe race baiting. Allowing things to get a lot more. Accelerated in the dialogue than we need to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was the most interesting was there was a interview by Trayvon's mother on the Today Show. Just I think it was on Tuesday this last week, and we've got a clip, and let's play that. Eric, go ahead for our listeners.
If you were to come face to face with George Zimmerman, what do you want to tell him? What do you want to ask him?
One of the things that I still believe in, a person should apologize when they are actually remorseful for what they've done. I believe it was an accident. I believe that it just got out of control and he couldn't turn the clock back.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm so very impressed with this mother having kind of a thoughtful and reasoned response to that question. Yeah. I can't imagine how I would be reacting.
Yes, but it makes me think if the mother of the child that was killed can say, you know what, things got out of hand.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was anything deliberate.
There was not malicious intent.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like.
Couldn't we somewhere in this whole discussion with the media, with other people, take a step back and not automatically go to making it a race thing, to make it a racial thing?
Tamp down the rhetoric.
Exactly.
And even putting racial questions aside, this happens in all kinds of situations. And you and I are always talking about how everyone wants to point the finger and find someone to blame for anything that happens to me that I don't happen to like. So that happens in very petty ways, on day-to-day ways, and then in huge huge ways too. And I think that's a very, very balanced response, is that, you know what, bad things can happen sometimes. This is one of those times. I'd like an apology. But I think, didn't you tell me, Gene, she went on to say in this interview that the courts, will decide the issue, whether there was any criminal component.
Yeah, she said
she's not going to try and make that.
Yeah, she said we're
distinction.
not going. She said she's not going to make a judgment. She's going to let the courts decide, and she felt confident in the system we have in place.
That's right. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it would be very nice if we could remember that. So that'll probably be the last that we will weigh in on Trayvon Martin, but some good words to remember from both Tom Skiba and the mother of Trayvon Martin. Well, let's take a break, and after this, a lot more here on Where You Live.